numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey, what's happening? Welcome to a new topic here at Backyard's Non-Tech channel, Media, the Bulltish. This topic's going to cover both media and politics. Because let's face it, the lines are blurred between the both of them, and it's very hard to find exactly what, well, I should say it's very hard to find out exactly what's going on. But this one I want to talk about media and centralised media. Because, from my own personal opinion, it's a fucking mess. Okay. I'm a major consumer of news. I like to know what's going on. Be it locally here where I live, be it in my hometown of Melbourne, be it my state of Victoria, be it the whole of Australia. I like to know what's going on. Right across the board. Internationally, same thing. Often I want to see what's going on over in the US, the UK, Europe, New Zealand, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm an avid consumer of news. But often what I've found is I've got to take essentially two different sides of the story, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. And when you throw social media in over the top of it, it makes it very murky to find out exactly what's going on. However, the biggest problem with media here in Australia these days is it's Sydney-based. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Simple. All of Australia's media outlets, head offices of Australia's major TV, radio and print, is in Sydney. Sydney controls Australia's entire media platform. Okay? Now, for those who live outside of Australia, we have 3 commercial TV stations, 1 fully government funded, 1 partially government funded TV station. Okay? We have our major radio networks, both AM and FM, based in Sydney. TV based in Sydney. Print based in Sydney. So the head offices of everything for the media here in Australia, so the Australian media, is Sydney. Okay, now if you divide that up a little bit, and I say a little bit, radio, AM. Now, for my entire life, as long as I can remember, I've always listened to 3AW in Melbourne, Talkback Radio. For as long as I can remember, I have watched Channel 9 for my everything. For my news, my sport, weather, politics, story. Yeah. So, right at this point in time, Channel 9 Entertainment is Australia's biggest media company. Local media company. Okay, it's huge. Radio, TV and print. Right? So, 3AW and Channel 9 Melbourne are basically under the one umbrella now. But it's still controlled by a director in Sydney. The same for the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, to decipher that from the American Broadcasting Company. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation is extraordinarily Sydney-centric. Their view is of an issue outside of Sydney, but they put a Sydney spin on it. Same can be said for newspapers. The chief editors of newspapers, while they might be in the local city, their boss is in Sydney. So Australia's entire media platform and the basis of it is Sydney. Often you find in syndicated radio programs out of Sydney, they work on the assumption that someone else in the country needs to know about an incident in Sydney more than an incident in their local area. Now, a classic example of this is when you have, say, And 3AW did this for nearly 12 months, and it backfired on them badly. There was a problem in Sydney, and that radio show was being broadcast across the entire eastern seaboard of Australia. So Queensland down to here. And they thought it was more important to know what was going on in a suburb of Sydney than a major issue here in Melbourne. A huge problem on Melbourne's freeways. But do you think we could find out about it? No, because radio was coming out of Sydney. A lot of the FM stations around the country during the day will syndicate out of Sydney. A lot of the AM stations, local AM, will syndicate out of Sydney at night, sort of. The ABC syndicates as much as it can out of Sydney. Now, we know syndication is a cost-cutting measure. But the problem is that you get a centralised one point of view of an issue from that city's point of view of the rest of the country. And as I said, the classic example at the moment is the media has shaped Melbourne's COVID outbreak as the whole state of Victoria. They can't decipher between Melbourne and Victoria. But I can guarantee you one thing. If this problem was happening in Sydney and Victoria claimed it was a whole New South Wales problem, they'd be held to pay. But Sydney, who controls Australia's media, says it's a statewide issue when in actual fact it's a localised Melbourne outbreak. Go over to my other country, the US. I've got friends in the US. The three major TV networks in the new US all come out of, guess where? New York. It's the head office of everything. ABC, NBC, CBS. Fox. A lot of TV shows and a lot of news shows come out of New York, specifically New York City. So you often find a New York point of view across some national issues in the US. Hop over the pond, UK. Basically, you've got the BBC and ITV as television. You've pretty much got radio, BBC, LBC, and I can't think of the other one, Radio 5, is it, or something like that, over there in the UK. Oh, I forgot, Channel 4. So you've got the BBC, ITV, and Channel 4 for television in the UK. You've got BBC Radio, LBC, and I think it's Radio 5 or something for radio, mostly out of London. And then you've got Fleet Street, or what used to be known as Fleet Street, London. So again, you get a London view of a national issue in some cases. Centralised media has always been a problem for me because why would I need to know about an issue in another city? Shouldn't an issue affecting Victoria get a Victorian point of view? Shouldn't an issue of a city get that city's media's point of view? Rather than having to go upstairs to head office to get it tweaked. It doesn't make sense. When you throw social media into the mix, you all of a sudden get a massively blurred line that is very hard to follow. So what I have done and continue to do today is I listen to 3AW in Melbourne and I get a point of view from that. I watch National 9 News every night. I get a point of view from that. And that's a Melbourne news service because Channel 9 Melbourne, National 9 News Melbourne is one of the best news services in the country. I think it's actually number one in Melbourne at the moment. It beats Channel 7. Melbourne has always loved Channel 9. Always. Melbourne loves 3AW. Now, Channel 9 and 3AW are basically under the one company. So I get that. But what you do find with the media is they warp stories. You throw social media into the mix, and then somewhere in that blurred line is the real story. In the US, there is, well, we know Fox News is heavily aligned to the RNC. CNN is very close to the DNC, and you can see it. You can see it. Now, in America, there's the liberal media, and then there's the Republican media. Now, often you find the liberal media will back the DNC, and a radio jock who is a Republican, his show will take a Republican view of a topic. Similar thing here in Australia. Not to the same extent, but you can see it in TV and in radio. Now, Victoria is a conservative state. We don't do shock jock radio, and we don't do shock jock TV either. Sydney, on the other hand, is shock jock everywhere. They love it up there. We don't here. They tried it here in Victoria, and it was a disaster. Channel 9 likes the current federal government. Put it that way. Likes the current federal government. The ABC, so the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, is close on the Labor Party. All right? Very close to the Labor Party. They are critical of the government if it's Liberal National or if it's the coalition. If it's the Labor Party, they're a little softer. Get my drift? Same in the US. Fox News is very close to the Republican Party. Now, I have no time for Fox News and I have no time for CNN. Okay? If I want to find out what's going on in the US, and I like to follow, various things over in the US, it's the American Broadcasting Company, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the LA Times. And somewhere in there you will find the real story from a story you're following. Now, if it's a tech story, all right, I will take that and then mix in CBS News Radio into it, and I'll find out the real facts. Right? Social media has made it news and media more immediate these days, the immediacy of it. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the whole lot. But sometimes it gets it wrong. And generally speaking, the public won't need the media to tell them what's going on. The public will know more about a topic than the media knows. But the media tries to shape the public's view, and often it doesn't work. And in some cases, it can get a backlash. Sure. Now, we know with syndicated programs. Syndicated programs save companies money. Because all you do is you have one person in a studio, you only need one person to send it out, and every other radio station around the country takes that feed. Happens here in Australia. The amount of overnight syndication and sometimes weekend and daytime syndication saves a media company a lot of money, but you get that Sydney point of view regarding topics. And that Sydney point of view doesn't always work. It's the same in the US. Rush Limbaugh, massive Republican, hates the Democratic Party. Broadcast is syndicated to hundreds of stations across the US. Hundreds of stations. But you've also got to look at it this way. The US has a multitude of radio networks. You've got the iHeart Network. You've got CBS News Radio. You've got Westwood One. Premier Networks. Heaps of them. Now, one of my preferred US radio stations is my beloved 700 WLW in Cincinnati. And they're fairly middle of the road. But if I go, I should also say in that mix as well, throw Sean Hannity in the mix. Can't half tell he's a Republican. He's broadcast to hundreds of stations as well, him and Rush Limbaugh. But when you look at how much syndicated shows attempt to try and mould a view of opinion from where it broadcasts from, doesn't work. These days money is tight, we know that. And media organisations around the world try to save as much money as possible by doing as much as they can in one location and send it out from that location. A classic example of this is two of the highest rated Channel 9 stations in Australia, TCN 9 Sydney and GTV 9 Melbourne. But Melbourne's got to put up with Sydney's stuff when it comes to TV. Same with Channel 7. But predominantly the ABC is utterly Sydney-centric. I can't watch it. I can't even watch Channel 7. I get irritated by it. Now, these days, as I want to know what's going on globally, right? So if I want to find out what's going on over in the UK, for example, I'll find out what the BBC's got to say about a topic. Could be anything. We'll generally say, I'll find out what the BBC's got to say about a topic in TV and radio. Then I'll find out what Channel 4's got to say about the same topic. Then I'll find out what ITV says about the same topic. Then I'll find out what BBC Radio has to say, and then followed by LBC. Somewhere in there, I'll get the right answer to the question I'm looking for on that specific topic. The same in the US. Now, I admit I'm a bit of a closet yank. I have been for a long time. And I've said this on my main channel. I've said this here at Backyards Non-Tech channel. And some of my friends know this. I think Australia should be far closer to the US than anyone else in the world. If I want to find out what's going on with the US, what I do is I take the American Broadcasting Company, because as far as I'm concerned, they're better than NBC, CBS, and CNN, and Fox. Then I'll grab the New York Times. Yes, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the LA Times, when I can get them. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, I'll find the answer. Or I'll find out what's going on, because you've meshed the whole lot together, and all of a sudden you find out the truth. Unfortunately, though, you do see a lot of bias in media these days, and that bias definitely comes to the fore when it comes to politics and economics. You can see it in the US, you can see it in the UK, you can see it here in Australia. Right? So, the difference is slightly with Channel 10 here in Australia, because that's owned by Viacom CBS now. It's hard to pick where their affinity lies. Their allegiances lie, okay? Channel 9 is close to the Liberal National Coalition. 7, 10, I've got no idea. The ABC is definitely aligned with the Labor Party, because they hate everything the Liberal National Coalition does. At least from what I can see here in Victoria. Now, the biggest problem here in Australia is Victorians have a different view to South Australians, have a different view to Western Australians, different view to the Northern Territory, different view to Queensland, different view to New South Wales, different view to Tassie. Queensland has a different view on a topic from New South Wales, Victoria. So each state has a different view on a specific topic. But you find that the media tries to null that by having one view and mould the public's opinion. Doesn't always work. My concern these days primarily is the fact of how do you figure out what's really going on? Hang on a tick. The other half's knocking at the door. Sorry. How do you figure out what's really going on? It is difficult. I can say one thing though, and I can say this with confidence. I don't always trust what I see on social media. Now, social media is a huge problem. All right. A lot of your vicious rumours that start about something happen on social media. And sometimes it can get very difficult to figure out what's going on. Now, the upside to social media when it comes to news is the immediacy of it. You can get it out. A breaking news story can get out on social media quicker than it can get out on broadcast and print. Having said that, it's not always accurate. In fact, it's far from accurate in some cases. Now, I'm conservative, politically conservative. That doesn't necessarily mean I vote for the coalition here in Australia. It also doesn't necessarily mean I vote for the Labor Party either. I am a conservative. I am politically conservative. I'm a centrist, for want of a better term. So when it comes to news, I want to know the left and the right, and then sort of figure out what's in the middle. But media bias is a massive problem, and it doesn't matter where you live in the world. Media bias is problematic, and it is getting worse. I don't have a lot of time for Fox News over in the US. I don't have a lot of time for CNN either, and I think Channel 9's biggest mistake they ever made was to affiliate with CNN. That was stupid. Absolutely inane. I have no time for CNN. I have no time for them whatsoever. I've watched CNN and it is terrible. It's like I've got no time for Fox News. Fox News Channel, which we get here in Australia on Foxtel, is horrific. If I want to find out what's going on in the US, as I said, I'll try and get it from CBS News Radio, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Wall Street Journal, throw in 700 WLW, throw in another radio station, and I'll find the middle ground. And often you find that if you mix the two together, you'll actually get to the real truth of the problem. Do you know how I'd fix the media here in Australia? Which, from my own point of view, would work. And it wouldn't cost a lot. The media companies would still make money. How does any media company make money? Advertising. We know that. So, how would I fix the media here in Australia? I'd give it back to the capital cities. Because often the capital cities won't just know what's going on in the city. They'll have an idea of what's going on in the regional area of their state. Meaning, TCN 9 in Sydney will have an idea of what's going on in New South Wales. QTQ 9 Brisbane will have an idea of what's going on in regional Queensland. GTV 9 here in Melbourne will have an idea of what's going on in Victoria. Same can be said for the 7 network. Same, well, not 10. The ABC, exactly the same thing. So instead of having everything based in goddamn Sydney, you palm it out. All right? And for example, here in Australia, on our, well, at least 3 networks, because Channel 10 just pulls CBS this morning, we have the Today Show on 9, we have Sunrise on 7, we have News Breakfast on Channel 2. Now, that's okay for breakfast TV. Melbourne loves the Today Show, which is fine. Okay, hang on. You can still have the Today Show nationally. But after that, the news of the day locally starts rolling in. So instead of having national news services across the day, you really should have state-based services across the day. Capital city and regional. Instead of having just one program cover the whole of the country and spend 30 seconds on an issue in the state, you could give it back to the state, give it back to the cap city. The cap city will have an idea from the state's point of view what's going on. You broadcast it to the state. The same thing for radio. Print's a little different. Print's a little harder to do. But the immediacy of TV and radio, you could do it. Same thing in the US. EW Scripps is the other network I was thinking of. You could do the same thing in the US. You have NBC Today, you have Fox and Friends in the morning, you have, or Good Morning wherever it is with the Fox network. You have NBC Today, GMA from ABC, and CBS This Morning. You can do it nationally. Then you hand the television station back to the local area so that the news of the day can roll in. They can get it out on TV. Doesn't take long to get it out on TV now. Get it out on radio as well instead of syndicating everything from Miami and New York City. Or Virginia, I think, is where Mark Levin is. I think it's one of the Virginias, or it might be one of the Carolinas, but he's out of somewhere there, Mark Levin. So, former advisor, I think, to Reagan. I've seen some of his stuff. But I think, you know, the media these days is a stinking mess. And this is where I think the public tend to have a little bit of bias against the media, because they're like, well, hang on, you guys have got no stinking idea what's going on. We do, we're living it. It's like the political bubbles of the world, really, when you think about it. You know, the US has got the Washington bubble, we've got the Canberra bubble, Britain's got the London bubble. Okay? It's the same thing can be said for the media. When you base a media or a country's media in one location, you've got a media bubble in that location that tries to control the national opinion on a topic. When you break down to it, you can have differing opinions in each individual local area. And that's where the problem lies. Victoria is a conservative state, so is Melbourne. I don't have a problem with that per se. We're definitely not a socialist, although we're governed by a socialist government. But I think, you know, the way the media works today is often against the public opinion. News directors and chief editors have got their own opinion of a topic, and they want the public often to join their opinion. It doesn't always work. And then you've got this whole thing now of if you have an opinion, you can't express it. Which I think is bullshit. I mean, when I've had an opinion on my own, on my main channel, I've been held on for it. Well, fuck off. the only way you're going to fix the media bias you get these days is to get rid of centralised media outlets. Because the way I see it, if you get rid of that, then the media in the local area can get an idea of how the public feels about a topic and use that for the basis. Rather than using a chief editor or chief news director or someone who's got their own opinion on a topic and forcing that down the public's throat. It doesn't work properly. And I'll be honest, I think over the last definitely since the introduction of social media, very much since the introduction of social media, but at least from my own point of view, for the last 20 years, the media's gotten worse. It's definitely gotten too close to the political scene, not just here in Australia, but anywhere and everywhere in the world. It's definitely got too close to lobby groups rather than trying to stay independent. So you've got to take the middle ground when you find a story, regardless of the topic, and that's what I do. Take a view from the left, for example, a view from the right, mix it in with a bit of social media, and somewhere in the middle of all that, you will find what you're looking for in a topic. Doesn't matter what topic. You'll find it in there. Like I keep saying, often you'll find the public has more of an idea about what's going on than the media does. Because often you'll find the public is living the problem. The media is just reporting it. But the public's living it. And until the media get their head around that problem, you're never going to get the truth. Also, have you noticed the media is very soft these days? You don't have a lot of hardline journalists pulling, sports people, politicians, scientists, etc. You don't have them going hard anymore. Like, you go back to the 80s. Here in Australia, we had some hard nut journos, some news-driven people, and they would get to the bottom of a story. Now it's pussyfooting around a topic. When you think about it. Anyway, there we go. So this is the new topic. Media, the Bulltish, will be covering news stories and politics in this one. Because it's just another topic that I'm interested in. Anyway, enjoy your Tuesday. And for those of you who are viewers and subs at my main channel, I'll catch you tonight for the convo. Cheers.